Sometimes a story that sounds like a fairy tale, it just becomes a complete nightmare. That's kind of what we're diving into today. We're looking at one of the most shocking royal tragedies you can imagine, but from a really unique perspective. We've got the personal diary of the guy who was in charge of palace security, a man named Military Secretary Vivek Kumar Shah. I mean, just think about this headline. It's the kind of thing that still gives you chills. On June 1st, 2001, Nepal's own crown prince murdered 9 members of his family. We're talking about a normal Friday night family dinner, and the heir to the throne just guns down his own father, the king, his mother, the queen, 7 other royals, and then turns the gun on himself. It's just unbelievable. An event like that, it just shattered the entire nation of Nepal. I mean, it literally led to the end of a 240-year-old monarchy. But here's the thing. This didn't just come out of nowhere. This wasn't some random act. It was the endpoint of years of pressure, of personal demons, and a family crisis that was just completely spiraling out of control. So the big question is, how on earth did it get this bad? And the person who's going to guide us through all this is General Vivek Kumar Shah. Think about his position. He was the king's military secretary. He was the guy responsible for the security, the same security that failed in the most catastrophic way possible. His memoir, The Palace I Saw, is our source, and it gives us this incredible, raw look at the tensions that were just boiling beneath the surface. Okay, so to really get what happened, we need to rewind a bit, because the secretary's diary makes one thing crystal clear. This was a family under extreme, and I mean extreme, stress. The cracks were showing long before that horrible night. It was like a perfect storm of conflict, just building and building for years. First, you've got this wild astrologer's prophecy that hung over Crown Prince Devender's head literally from birth, saying his reign would be a disaster. Then add to that a huge, bitter fight over who he wanted to marry. His parents did not approve. And that led his own mother, the queen, to make this just devastating threat. She basically said she'd make his younger brother the next king instead. And you have to understand, this wasn't just, oh, we don't like your girlfriend. This was a direct shot at his entire identity, his whole future as king. And we know how much this got to him because the crown prince himself told Secretary Shah about this threat. That just shows you how deep this cut. So, on top of all that immense pressure, you have the prince's drug problem. Secretary Shah writes about it pretty bluntly. He says he saw Dipendra mixing his sheesh dust right into his cigarettes. And get this, palace aides would even see him using drugs in the bathroom during official events. So you've got this really volatile mix, intense family pressure cooker on one side and unchecked drug use on the other. Not a good combination. And then you get this quote, the kind that makes the hair on your arms stand up. According to the chatter inside the palace that Shah wrote down in his diary, the prince was heard saying this exact line. It's just a massive, chilling warning sign of a mind being pushed right to the absolute limit. All right, so now we get to that night, June 1st. And for Secretary Shah, you have to remember, this wasn't just some distant national tragedy. This was a deep personal and professional failure. It was his job to stop this. The final number is just staggering. 10 people, 10 members of the royal family were killed, and that includes Crown Prince Dipendra himself. In a bizarre twist of fate, he was actually declared king while he was in a coma before he died 3 days later. The whole nation was just left rudderless in a state of complete and utter shock.
So what does Shah say about it in his diary? Well, he's unflinching. He says, look, as head of security, I take full moral responsibility for this failure. But he is also super clear about one thing. All those conspiracy theories about some outsider getting in, he says they're baseless. The chance of an unauthorized person getting into that building was, in his words, absolutely zero. He stands by the official investigation, the one that pointed the finger directly at Dipender, saying that report reflects the ground reality.
You can imagine the massacre just ripped a hole in the country's leadership. It created this massive power vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum, right? So something else immediately rushed in to fill it. And that something was another crisis that had been simmering for years, Nepal's brutal civil war. And Shah's diary really paints a picture of a nation that was totally at war with itself, even in how it chose to fight. You had the police force, who were set out to fight these Maoist insurgents, but they were completely under-equipped for that kind of guerrilla war. They were taking heavy
heavy casualties. And then you have the Royal Nepal Army, better trained, better armed, but the politicians just couldn't decide whether to deploy them. And that hesitation, it created a huge security mess that the insurgents knew exactly how to take advantage of.
So, you see, the death of the royal family wasn't just some isolated incident inside the palace walls. It threw the whole country off balance. The monarchy was this symbol of national unity, and suddenly, it was gone. And the Maoist insurgency, which had been kind of a regional issue before, it just exploded into a massive nationwide conflict. So, in the years after the massacre, Secretary Shah is stuck trying to navigate this totally new, chaotic political world. And from his perspective, it seemed like the country's leaders were more interested in fighting each other than in fighting the actual insurgency that was tearing the country apart. And his diary details this absolutely wild, secret plan to try and end the war. A Swiss NGO came in with this proposal. Let's form secret delegations from both sides, the government and the Maoists. We'll arrange a private jet, fly you all to Geneva, and you can hold secret talks until you figure this out. And the NGO would pay for the whole thing. It was this huge, high-stakes gamble to try and find a solution, far away from all the noise and press back in Nepal. But, peace was just out of reach. And a big reason why was the political infighting. The diary is just full of these entries about how the prime minister was constantly being undermined by his own rivals within his party. The leadership was so broken, so focused on their own power struggles, that they just couldn't get it together to form a united front against the civil war. It basically paralyzed the government's response.
So that brings us to this really core question, one that you can feel Shah grappling with on every page. How do you serve a nation when its leaders are at war with each other? I mean, here's a military man. His whole life is about serving the state. But what happens when the state itself is falling apart? You can just feel his frustration, trying to keep things from completely collapsing while the politicians are just bickering.
And you can see this struggle in his own actions, too. Right after the massacre, he tried to resign. He felt it was the only honorable thing to do. But the new king, Gyanendra, he said no. He refused the resignation and basically ordered him to stay on and help the country get through this mess. So when you get right down to it, Shah's diary is so much more than just a historical record of what happened. It's really a deep look at the idea of duty. What is true loyalty? Is it to a single person, like a king? To an institution, like the monarchy? Or is it to the nation itself? When everything you have sworn your life to protect just crumbles around you, what does it actually mean to serve? It's a heavy question, and it's one that really sticks with you.